And it's the same thing with clergy. So when we get together, we do this, we talk about our ministries. And one of our standard questions, one of these standard conversations across faith traditions is when you prepare your service, when you prepare Sunday or Saturday morning service. It's classic conversation starters. Like, when do you write your sermon? And as you might imagine, there are very varied responses, quite different responses. I have colleagues who take a specific day and they write on that day. Like, for example, Thursday is my sermon writing day. That's the day when I sit down, I make sure I write it, and then by Friday morning, I'm always done. Whether I'm okay with it or not, Thursday's my writing day, and that's what I do. Others take a sort of kernel of their intended message, their kernel, their crux of the message, and they hold it in their hearts the entire week, and they jot down little notes on napkins, on pieces of paper, maybe in a notebook, and then they finalize it throughout the week. So like on Monday, do most of the work, and then throughout the week, I write a little bit here and there, and then it gets sort of, as the week progresses, it gets finished. And still others go to an extreme of not writing anything, of letting the Spirit move them in the moment. That makes me really anxious, but some of my colleagues say, well, I'll see what I preach on Sunday morning. We'll see where the Spirit moves and what happens. Wow. Well, now, you might be asking, like, why am I sort of having this meta conversation? Why am I sharing this? Well, part of it is to show that we are all different, even in the exact same situation. So we have the identical task of writing a sermon and preaching a sermon, and there are a multitude of different ways that we can go about this, that we can prepare, that we can put our time and energy into it. And each one of these can lead to meaningful, can lead to transformative experiences. I've been moved by extemporaneous preaching, that's off the cuff. I've been really moved by extemporaneous preaching, just as I have been moved by the person who writes carefully every single word and practices their homily over and over. There's not one best way. And the picture book that I shared shows the same thing, but with painting. Picasso and Matisse, the actual painters, have very, very different ways of painting, different styles. Each one is moving. Each one is amazing, is beautiful. There's no best way to do it. So even at the exact same task, we can have different ways of approaching it. And that's a given. I mean, this is a given. We have so many decisions every day and every moment of every day. And each one of us approaches these decisions differently. We answer our questions of life in different ways. From what I wear, to how I act, to what employment I strive for, the way I set the table. This is like the sort of mundane everyday, to whether I want to get married or not, and to whom, the life-changing. Through our mundane everyday decisions and our life-changing monumental decisions, we constantly are defining who we are. We're constantly defining how we live our lives. And this is so much more than just painting and preaching. Those are just the examples I used. So every single moment of our lives, there are decisions. Do I turn left or right in life, on the road, walking? Do I help my friend? Do I ignore them? Do I go to church? Virtually? Not. Do I look for a new job? What time do I wake up? What do I do with my free time? Am I happy with what I am doing? And with each decision, each small, each large decision, each choice we make in our lives, our faith imperative is to listen to our heart. Our faith imperative of acknowledging our worth, acknowledging our dignity, is to be true to ourselves. That's the inherent worth and dignity of everybody. That's including you. Yeah, you think I'm not pointing at you? No, you, yes, you too. That means acknowledging yourself, listening to your heart when you make every little decision, every big decision. It sounds, and this may, like, it sounds easy. It comes off as like, oh, that's just listen to yourself. Well, it's not that easy, as we know sometimes. Because when I began preaching years ago, when I first started preaching, I would think about every service I did a week or more in advance. I would read books, I would research online, I would pray, I would think, I would talk to colleagues, and then I would sit in front of my computer, and my stress would go up, and it would go up, And I would write very, very little, and I would just get more and more anxious and more stressful, hour after hour, day after day, really. And my stress would just build. I was like, oh my gosh, Sunday's coming. What do? I have nothing. Now, as it happens, as you may sort of see where I'm going, it's like there's no deadline extension on preaching. You can't call and be like, oh, you know what? Can I just hand it in Monday? Doesn't work. Sunday morning comes, and you have to have what you have. This hard deadline of Sunday morning comes, and it came for me, and I was forced to begin and finish through Saturday night or sometimes Sunday morning. And I was so anxious, but that hard deadline helped me. And the product would be fine. The product might be amazing. It might be mediocre, but it would be okay. But the week preceding it was awful. It was terrible. And at that time, I was not listening to my heart. I was not being true to myself. I was trying to be someone I was not. And I'll come back to that. Have you ever had a moment or a time when you were doing something that didn't seem right? It didn't feel like it was you, when you despised maybe, or didn't feel comfortable with what you were doing or how you were doing it? This is what I was feeling, and this is how part of how we can be true to ourselves, how we can listen to our heart, how we can listen to our bodies, because our bodies tell us this information. Our heart tells us this information. I'm trying to sort of explain a feeling it's difficult to explain, and it's also maybe different in different situations. When I wasn't living into my true self, I was getting stressed out. It was impacting other areas of my life. I couldn't really focus on other tasks, and I couldn't be present with myself or with my friends or family. I still needed to complete the task, but in a way maybe that was more true to who I was than trying to be something I was not. And I have another sort of simplified example with clothing. If you come to your closet or your dresser and you no longer want to wear like anything that you have, it might mean that you're not sort of living into your true self of how you want to look, of how you want to present yourself. That could be, because culture tells us that we dress a certain way. I mean, that's culture is always telling all sorts of things, but like that we dress, that we present in a certain way. And that might not be how we want to present ourselves, how we want to look. If my closet was filled with clothing of someone else, I might not really want to wear all that. I want to wear something that expresses me. Or another example, not being excited about how you spend your free time, or not being excited about what employment you have. These might be signs that you're not living into your true self, into your true heart's calling. And I bet people who have broken off serious romantic relationships know the heartache of the self-realization that comes hand in hand with that, of saying, hopefully for both parties, that it's about living into the couple's true selves, the individual's true selves, even when that means that they need to be apart. It's that living into being yourself truly and what that could mean. Now, coming back to my example, my sort of meta preaching example, many years ago, I was talking with Reverend Greg, your beloved minister. We were talking shop, because that's what we do. We were talking about when we write our sermons. And Greg very happily replied in his nice, calm guy. He said he oftentimes writes his sermons at the last minute. He had no sense of regret, no intense stress. He even said something along the lines of, and don't quote me because I'm saying, paraphrasing here, I'm not quoting him. I know that this is who I am, Greg is saying. I know that this is who I am, this is how I work. I write my sermons Saturday night or even Sunday morning. Oh, and it was just we were just chatting. No big, amazing epiphanies there. But I've been thinking, over the years, I've been thinking about what he said, thinking about our conversation. And I began to take this feeling to heart. And I couldn't help but live into my true self. I wasn't living into my true self. I was being so anxious. And Greg showed me a path. He showed me a path of accepting myself. Because he was accepting himself. He's like, I write really early Sunday morning. And he showed me a path of being accepting unapologetically to himself, not saying, oh, I feel terrible, this is when I do it, I just want to change. He was saying, no, this is when it happens for me, this is when it works. And so now I try to be more relaxed, remembering Greg, I try to be more relaxed, to live in a true sense of who I am and how the Spirit moves in me, acknowledging that for some people, waiting until the last minute would be so stressful. But living into my true self means I'm not apologizing to myself, and I'm more okay with writing at the last minute. What does that look like? Well, the sort of flip side of not living into our true selves is the freedom and the empowerment gained when we do listen to our heart. So much freedom, so much empowerment. When we listen to that, when we get to the point of listening to our heart and being our true selves, donating the clothes that really don't inspire us, that we don't want, maybe going job hunting for a more meaningful employment, taking the hard steps to redefine a relationship, maybe taking up a longed-for hobby, or letting go of a hobby which has become a chore. So much of being ourselves unapologetically is knowing when to say yes and when to say no. The process takes time, it takes energy for discernment, time for introspection, time for thought, discernment to know what you truly want, how you feel right, how you feel true in the world. Listening to your heart and acting on it takes courage and strength also. It takes the courage to say no to yourself or to others, the strength to stand up for yourself and to stand up for what you feel in your inmost being. And you know what, just sort of being unapologetically you isn't always going to be easy. Just like Matisse and Picasso didn't get along. The book is based in reality, not all true, but they didn't always get along. There will be hardships, because there will be people who don't agree with each other. That's right, we don't agree. There will be disagreements, and that is good. What? Hold on, what? Disagreements is good? Well, yes. Yeah, because how else are we called to grow? How are we going to grow? How else are we going to challenge? How are we going to define ourselves except with seeing the viewpoints and hearing the viewpoints of those people around us? We need to remember, as eventually happened in this story, we need to remember that different ways of approaching similar tasks, similar lives, aren't necessarily bad. Different ways of approaching things, and the people who are different from us, we can still be partners. We can still be friends. Because we aren't alone. We aren't alone in this life. We walk our path always interacting with others. And it's the very reason we come here, right? Why are you here in this virtual gathering? Why are you here? We come together in worship. We come to give thanks for our lives. We come to celebrate the mysteries of creation, to search for our own truth and meaning, to share our joys, to share our sorrows. And we come together to be supported. We come together to be challenged in loving accountability. I think there's nothing more loving than accountability. And that doesn't really sound like romantic or maybe even friendly, but I promise to hold you accountable. I don't know many wedding vows that have that, but that love of accountability is why faith communities form, and it's why they sustain. A defining idea for me, a defining idea for my ministry and my life is embodied by this quote by Reverend Bill Gardner. We all have two religions. The religion we talk about and the religion we live. It is our task to make the difference between those two as small as possible. Now, the loving accountability I'm talking about is helping others, helping ourselves listen to our hearts. Accountability at its best is gently pushing our two religions closer. Accountability is the voice in our head. It's the stress in our body. It's the friend's loving admonishment. It's the colleague's comment, which helps us bring our action more in line with our faith. So in talking with Greg, because I'll go back to this example back and forth, about preaching, I've become more loving and accepting of myself. Yeah, about when I write sermons, but also in other areas. This has sort of spilled out, because he was embodying what I needed to do of being okay with something in my personality, being okay with myself. He embodied self-love. He embodied unapologetic living and calmness in his identity. So I've tried over the years to take this on, and it feels good. I spend more time with family. I'm more relaxed through the week. I'm not stressed out about Sunday morning, and the Spirit still moves at the last minute. That's when it happens. So I ask, are there parts of your life? Are there parts of your life which need more acceptance and less pressure? It can be hard, especially in this season of resolutions, this season of self-judgment. It can be so hard to accept ourselves. Yes, we can still strive for betterment. We can strive to grow. And at the same time, we can strive for being loving toward ourselves. And we can still live unapologetically. I could keep talking about this for a while. There's a lot of little areas we could go into, and there's much that I'm sort of glossing over, and especially with some of the hard things, which I want to note, and also note that I'm going quickly, just to make sure that they're acknowledged, but I can't spend hours here. Being able to choose, being able to change some aspects of our lives is a luxury. Yeah, this is privileged. This is a privilege here. Changing jobs, especially. Switching wardrobes, that's not always feasible. That's not always something that we can do. So look for where you're able to live into your true self, how you can be unapologetically you. Where can you live into your true self? And also that sometimes, I'm going to note this again quickly, sometimes living into our true selves can be harmful. It may feel really good and true to oneself to drink a lot of alcohol. That may be so. Or to act selfishly without thinking at all of other people. Now, that's the part of being in relationship. That's being in relationship. That's being in community with other people. That's where we look at ourselves and we listen to others. Am I being true to myself and not hurting myself or other people? Maybe I need to seek out a therapist, minister, other professional for help. Unapologetic living is self-love, including growth and accountability. So I wanted to acknowledge some of those difficulties, but not spend a lot of time on them. That could be maybe another sermon for another day, maybe a whole discourse series on that. But for today, I'm going to end with some particulars, because I love, this is faith, this is what we think. Okay, now let's bring it down, and what are we going to do? How are we going to live it? I'm all about embodied faith. It's like, if you're not living your faith, then what is it? Why? So let's take this and say, here's some examples, here are some practicals, how we might get to better listening in our hearts, better unapologetic living. The first task is to take some time, take some energy, and get to know yourself. Meditate, as Anna showed us this morning. A wonderful way to take just a few moments. Meditate, pray, be silent, think. Know thyself. Take that time to be alone, to know who you are, to know who you want to be. Because if you don't know, you can't live into your true self. If you don't know what your true self is. Then when you make decisions, think of yourself. Listen to yourself. Just think, what is that person? What am I expected to? What does culture think of? What do I want? Acknowledging the privilege, but saying, what do I want? What do I really want to do? Listen to your inner self. Accept that. And here's a big one for me. Try, when you live, to be unapologetic, and unapologetic very specifically. So the word sorry in apologizing. The word sorry is very, very useful. But I warn us all to be mindful about saying sorry, to mindful about how often we use that. It's sometimes overused. And of course we need to apologize when we make a mistake. But we do not ever need to apologize for being ourselves. Right? So yes, of course apologize for mistakes. But don't apologize for who you are. When you're being your true self, be mindful of saying sorry. And I've tried to live into this of being mindful about saying sorry and saying instead thank you. And I'll give you an example. So this is especially when I'm going against sort of cultural norms. And a very specific is if I'm emailing someone, I'll say, instead of saying sorry, I don't respond to emails within an hour, that's apologizing for who I am, because I'm not on my email all the time, even though culture says, be on your email, be on your email. I'm like, I need to be more mindful. So I could say, sorry, I don't respond to emails all the time. Instead I say, I'm not on my email all the time. Thank you for understanding that I'll be in touch later today or tomorrow. Thank you for understanding, not sorry for who I am. I will apologize for mistakes I do, but I'm not going to apologize for who I am. So again, take the time to know yourself. Take the time and the energy to know yourself. Second, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. And then third, don't apologize for who you are. Those are simple, right? Simple, easy, difficult. Oh my gosh, so big. And do all of this in our culture, in community, in relationship with others who are also trying to live into their true selves. So simple, so difficult. The key is to know yourself, to know what rings true in your soul, to know what resonates in your inmost being, to bring your life and your faith in line, your lived faith, your believed faith, to bring them in line, to think about it, and then to do it. Amen.